Welcome everybody, this is Ray of RebelEars.com. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. So with everybody who's new to this channel or to the podcast, I talk about things I learned as an engineer, intern, even stagehand. Today we're actually talking about stagehand. So a stagehand is someone who sets up stages, concerts at different stadiums, venues, like amphitheaters, festivals, depending on where it's located, right? We're also going to be talking about the vocals. Like when you're recording, there's a lot of things that you need to understand, especially as an engineer, especially a tracking engineer. So tracking is the same as recording. So basically what tracking means, that means you're doing like editing during the recording. So while the artist is recording, you could probably work on the backup vocals or the ad-libs or the hooks while the artist is recording. So that's possible. And we also going to be talking about my mentor, Steve Habicki, which I want to give him a shout out. So these are the shows between 2016 and 2017 I started building stages for. So Beyonce Formation Tour, Rihanna, Keith Urban, Selena Gomez, Van Morrison, Circus Soleil, Croc-Fest, Chase of Chaos, Demi Lovato, Dierks Bentley, Nicky Jam, Gwen Stefani, Pitbull, Guns N' Roses, UFC, Migos, AC/DC, Drake, Future, Tours of Gymnastics Champions, Stevie Nicks, Maxwell, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Jay-Z, Five Finger Death Punch, Passion Rehearsal, Amy Grant, Game of Thrones, Eric Church, Bon Jovi, Andrea Bocelli, The Lumineers, Charlie Wilson, Travis Scott, Ray Shrimmer, Radiohead, Ariana Grande, T.I., Brett Paisley, Tom Petty, Red Hot Chili Pepper, One Music Fest, Green Day, 2 Chainz, Billy Joel, Vic Mensa, Neil Diamond, Kendrick Lamar, Children's Museum, Big Sean, Marsha Ambrosius, Tim McGraw, Taylor Swift, Chris Brown, Post Malone, The Weeknd, Chance the Rapper, Metallica, Firefly Festival, Enrique Iglesias, Tony Robbins, Roger Waters, James Taylor, New Kids on the Block, Paul McCartney, Shawn Mendes, Mary J. Blige, Ed Sheeran, Shreya Ghoshal, Arcade Fire, Eagles, Catalyst, Zac Brown Band, Halsey, R&B Super Jam, Fall Out Boys, Jim Gaffigan, Mark Anthony, For King and Country Christmas. So that's just a few of the shows I built between 2016 and 2017. I actually had more, but just so you could get an insight on the stages I actually built. So I actually got into it when I was at SAE, School of Audio Engineering, and they had orientation. And I remember his name was Todd, one of the reps for Crew One, who gave a quick intake on what goes on with Crew One, how it's scheduled, the shows they do. I learned a lot from working Crew One, but understanding the stagehand work, that's like stage one, because you learning everything from the ground up. So right now, I am able to work at hotels. I do less stagehand work. I do more AV tech. I have experience as a A2, V2, L2. So A2 is audio 2, V2, video 2, L2, lighting 2. So the difference from okay, good example, A1, A2. So audio 1 is the person who's over the mixing console. So let's say we're at a venue, right? The person who's over the mixing console for the stage, that's front of house. They have front of house, and then they also have a mixing area on the side of the stage, right? So I used to work front of house with the A1, and the A1 is the one who's over the mixing console. So the A2 is basically helping the A1, making sure any troubleshooting, if there's anything wrong with the sound quality, the A1 will look at you what needs to happen, because you got to be quick on your toes, because the biggest thing that I've seen a mic go off in the middle of a performance. I wasn't the A2 at the time. This was when I was still a stagehand, and it wasn't with Crew One. I forgot what company it was, but it was an artist on stage, and the mic went off in mid-performance, and that can get you fired. because every show, of course, they have, nowadays it's not that many wired dynamic microphones. There's like a lot of wireless dynamics, right? And with wireless dynamic mics, you have to have batteries. And I actually learned this like front hand. When it comes to shows, you really don't use the batteries again. Like after they're done with the performance, they take the batteries out, either throw it away or leave it on front of house table. And a lot of people, do that, and I understand why, because you never want to risk yourself having like half-used batteries. Every time you use a mic on stage, it has to be new. Okay, so if you have experience with a stagehand company and you want to work as an A2, that's basic. A lot of people don't really think about it until, something that happens. So as a stagehand, there was different positions. So as a stagehand, of course, what would happen, you would get to the location. So let's say you get to the venue at 6 a.m. The show starts at like 10, 11. There's different shows, different venues that perform early, perform late. So we do it this way because, we got to build the stage, but we also got to break it down. So when it comes to that, we might be at one venue, we have loaders. So loaders are the ones who take equipment out the trucks. So we have like big 54-foot trucks. I remember also on the list, I don't think I said Taylor Swift. With Taylor Swift, we unloaded for her 1989 tour, I think it was like up to 40 trucks. Yeah. So it took like a couple hours to dump all those trucks. But a lot of people really don't see, you see the stage, you're amazed, but behind the scene, it's a lot of work. Even though it's a lot of work, it's actually fun to, see behind the scenes of how it's all set up, building your experience. Because from Taylor Swift, I think the most was Beyonce, because it was during the Formation tour, and she had that big video wall that spins around the whole time. And I was working on the video wall, and it was very fun to do. But we'll talk about that on another episode. I just really want to break down what I had to do as a stagehand, right? So as a loader, of course, you take the equipment out to trucks. They have different trailers. They had different trailer that's full of, like, one trailer might be full of lighting, one trailer might be full of video, one might be audio, one might be pyro, special effects. They might have confetti shooting out. They actually have pyro, like, flames, smoke, whatever, fog machines. So they also have a front of house truck with all of audio. Well, sometimes front of house, because it depends. You might have, when you go into a concert, they have, the headliner, the openers, like 2-3 artists. So they have their own trucks, their own trailers. And some actually have a band. They have their own equipment. They set up behind the scenes. So when the openers are done, they can just roll off their equipment to the side. We have people who are called what's show call. Show call is basically during the show. Because when we're done building the stage, a lot of people leave, but there's some people who stay during show call. That's basically meaning like while they're practicing, doing sound check. So sound check is basically making sure the vocalists, the drummers, the band are EQ'd. You got to EQ the room because it's a big amphitheater, stadium, concert hall. It really got to EQ the room because there might be a frequency off. It might be a low, mid-range, or a high range that might be off, and you really got to EQ it because the last thing you want to do is while the artist is performing, you hear like a high screeching noise in your ears that just like ruin the experience of the show. So that's why you have front of house to make sure that everything is set before the doors even open. That's the purpose of sound check, right? So with that in mind, with show call, a few stagehands stays. You might have a forklift driver there, 1 or 2, depending on like what equipment needs to be taken off. Because during sound check, the openers have their equipment. We gotta set it up, and then when they're done with sound check, the headliner comes. So we gotta move the openers' equipment to the side to get ready for the headliners, and then set it all back up that way. And with show call, you staying there the whole time. So of course they had catering, which amazing catering. with show call, it was fun. I did a lot of them. I have a helmet with so many different shows I worked on. I'm looking at it now. I'm looking at like James Taylor, Tom Petty, rest in peace, Arcade Fire, Fall Out Boys, Gorillaz, Eagles, Mary J. Blige, Ed Sheeran, Zach Brown Band, Marco Antonio Solis. I was just blessed to work with a lot of different shows, and this is on my helmet. So anytime you see me working, I had this red helmet with all these stickers from doing show call, because all the stickers that's on my helmet were from show call. And not anybody can just do show call, because they want someone who's reliable, who's been there for some time, who know what they're doing. And I actually have experience as a fork operator, so I can drive a forklift. So I was doing a lot of that. So with that in mind, you have your loaders, they dump the truck. You have stagehand. There's some people who just, I try to remember exactly what was the terminology for people who just take the equipment out the trailer and they bring it to an area for stage. So there's also another truck that's called rigging. So rigging is actually the people who climb up to the top of the stadium and they walk across the beams above you, and it could be like 100, 200 feet above you. I know Mercedes-Benz Stadium is like over, I'm trying to think if it's 300 feet, but you have people who climb all the way up there.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
And they actually call riggers, and the riggers are the ones who make sure they work together to put motors up. So these motors are basically, they go up to the ceiling, they pull it with special rope, and the motor has a chain that actually hold what's called trusses. So trusses, you might have seen them like at venues. It's like this big silver, there's really no way to describe it. I guess like a silver ladder, but it's like rectangle, right? And what you do, those trusses are, you can look it up, TRUSS. Trusses are used to hoist equipment above. So the first thing we had to do, the first thing that would go to the concert stadium where we're working, I'll just say stadium, all right, just to keep it simple, because that's where most of the shows were done in. So we bring the rigging equipment to the stadium. So we got like span set shackles. I'm using a lot of terms. You can look them up if you want to. This is dealing with rigging. So they had span set, shackles, rigging motors, I'll just call it that. And we bring it to a location where they have floor riggers, ground riggers. They're the people who actually map out where each point for the motor is going, because it's getting hoisted up in the air, and it's a lot of weight that is holding all the lighting, all the video, like the speakers. It's a lot of light, so you got to imagine like the weight you got to hold. So it got to be even weight distribution, because you can look up on Google of shows in the past that dealt with chains breaking and, the structures not being calculated right and the whole structure might fall. It's a big thing. Like, they get the actual spot for where you're going to map out where the rigging motor is going to go, right? So it could be up to like 50 to 100 motors that's going to be raised to the ceiling, so all the trusses can go up at the same time. And you have what's called a pickle. So a pickle is basically this little, it's just a small remote that's hooked up to the motors. I know it's a lot. I'll explain more. If you have any questions, please let me know. With YouTube, you can put a comment. With Anchor, the podcast platform, you can actually record a question and I'll listen to it. So with a Pickle, there's only up down. So up will hoist the rigging motor up, and down, of course, it'll go down. So with that, you have the span set, the shackles locked in. You put the rigging motor up, and you hoist it up on the truss, and it'll to a point where you can start hanging your lighting, your audio, your video. It takes time, but when you've done it as long as I have, you understand like the process to the point it's like second nature to me. I already know what goes out, what's put to the side. But they always have people who's experienced. Like you're the stagehand, so all you're doing is following orders, right? So you have people who they travel with the artists. They're tour mates. So basically, you have your project manager, you have your A1, A2, L1, all those that I already named. You see them and you can ask questions. Some people are okay with you asking questions here and there, but of course you're still working. So I see a lot of people get stagnant and just get lazy. But I actually watched the process of how they work together. I've been working a lot of different shows, and it's just amazing how quickly you can see the blueprint of the diagram on how it's going to be set up, and then seeing the ending result is really amazing. So yeah, with rigging, all of it goes up, and then when it's done, a lot of stagehands leave. Some people stay for show call, and from there, I watch the show. After the show, you got to break it down. So if you're doing show call, you can be there from 6 a.m. to like 10 at night. And now I do A2, L2, V2, AV Tech. So, and I get paid a whole lot more too, because being a stagehand, you just following orders. As A1, A2, you actually doing the troubleshooting. There's no stagehand who's there. You the person who gotta make sure everything works. Okay, so that was fun when it comes to stagehands. So now we're gonna talk about vocals. So everybody know the vocal is the most important instrument of a track, right? The thing is, you can have amazing production. If the vocals are not sounding right, then you really gotta work on good recording techniques. So when it comes to recording, like I said, everything determines on the vocals. And there's ways to record in the vocal booth, because I really want to talk about vocal chain. So vocal chain is basically when you record the track itself, you already have effects that'll be printed while it's recording. So you might use a preamp. Popular one is the Neve 1073. It's not just a preamp, it actually came off a console. It has, great ranges when it comes to EQ. I used the Neve 1073, and then I used the TubeTech CL1B, a compressor. So with the vocals, of course, that demands attention. That should be the center. That should be the main focus. But what I've seen in past sessions is, I see a lot of engineers solo the vocals when they're mixing, which doesn't make sense. So the reason why this don't make sense, you got to understand. Like, the purpose of mixing is to have everything to blend together. Mastering is to bring everything that you blend together to its fullest potential. So that's the difference from mixing and mastering. Mixing is mixing all the individual track. Mastering is bringing all the individual tracks that you'll get in a 2-track. So a 2-track is basically, like I explained in the past, on getting an MP3 or a wave. All the time you really want to work with waves. So basically an MP3 is a compressed version of the waves file. So a waves file can be like 50, 60 megabytes, and an MP3 might be like 3 to 4 megabytes. So you see the difference. Everything is compressed from the waves file that's an MP3. Yeah, so in the end, you do not want to have anything solo by itself, okay? So you want to mix everything together, because you're not going to listen to a song with just the acapellas by itself, unless you're going to use it for like a cover track, or to use it for like a remix. But if you're going to put this song out to the world, you're not going to solo the kick or the guitar. You're going to blend them in with all the instruments, all the drums, and the vocals. Right? If you're going to solo the vocal just to make sure it's clear, there's nothing in the background like noise or pops, I can understand that. But actually trying to mix the vocals by itself doesn't make sense at all. Okay, let's say you solo the vocals, you get a clear sound of the vocal, you're like, you know what, I like this. And then when you have it unsolo with all the instruments and drums playing, you like, okay, now the vocals sound muffled, it's hidden with all the instrumentations. So you gotta go all the way back to how you started. So with vocals, you never want to use the same microphone. It depends on what you have at the moment. So with me, I have a Neumann TLM 102. I got a Sterling ST55 or 59. I have Audio Technica, but I usually use my Neumann TLM 102. I'm thinking about getting the, what is it, Slate Digital VMS. Henry with the 3 has it, and I've been amazed since I used it. One of my favorite mic is the Manley reference cardioid mic, and Sony C800. You can look them up and see why, Top Studios. Top Studios used the C800, the Neumann U87. So let's talk about with vocals. With experienced singers or artists, they know exactly like the range they're looking for. They know how to have their mic set up because, with vocals, there's also mic setup. So you got to think about, okay, good thing. You don't just want the mic in front of you. Of course, like a lot of people think that way. You might want to have it at a up angle. The reason why you want to open the vocal cords to the point like they can get every word out, every enunciation to make it easy for them to like just flow. And a lot of people don't even know when you record it in a tighter space, you get better vocals because, the vocal booth might be dead. You don't want too much space in the room, so you really want to have it controlled. You do want to eliminate pops, the P's. Like, as you can see, I'm using a pop filter. So a pop filter is basically, well, for the people who's listening to the podcast and not watching on YouTube, I'm using a pop filter. The purpose of this is to give me space between myself and the microphone because you don't want to spit on the mic because what happened as time goes by, your mic will have different characteristics on the sounds. It might stop working. So you really want to treat your mic with, the highest quality of respect you can. So this helps to keep distance away from the mic and yourself. That's one. It helps with plosives, so that's pops, the P sounds. And it helps with, making sure that you're not spitting on the mic itself also. So, that's a quick tip on, when it comes to vocals. So right now we're going to talk about my mentor, Steve Abicki. So just want to shout him out because if it wasn't for him, I want to learn as much as I have from recording because I do think I am thankful for a lot that I learned at SAE. I learned the terminology. I learned how to use different, different mixing console. I know how to use the Yamaha O2R, Avid, D-Control, D-Icon, SSL, the E channel? I think it was the G channel 4000 series, honestly. That's at SAE. Like, I think in Georgia, there's only like either 4 or 5 SSL boards, and they're expensive. And, I'm thankful for all I learned there. But, one thing I did know, I learned from going to SAE and then going to the real studio feel is they don't really show you the pressure of working in the studio because you got to think of it this way. If you're working as an engineer, recording an artist, right, and they're paying you your time. So every time something happens, you gotta troubleshoot because you're the engineer. You are paid to make sure there's no problems because honestly, anybody can push record. Anybody can really mix. I want to say it's going to be good quality. Anybody can mix because, you just use an EQ compressor, something that's basic. But any problem that happens in the studio, like the mic just cut off for some reason, or, Pro Tools frozen, or a plugin's not working, or the preamp, or, the outboard gear is not working. There's a lot of things that can happen in the studio you might not even expect, but you got to be prepared for it. So I learned that from Steve because I see him working with like artists. Like mostly he does mixing now. I remember when he was recording like all the time. But, any problem that happens, of course, like I said, you got to make sure to take care of it. So with Steve, what I've learned, to handle the pressure of the studio. We had long talks about, going from Wisconsin to coming to Atlanta, working with Mike Will, working with Ray Shrimmer from Shrim Life 1 to all the way to Shrim 3, working with Trouble, everybody from Eardrummers, talking to me about Seth Firkins, rest in peace. Seth Firkins was Future's recording, mixing engineer. He's an engineering legend in my opinion, so rest in peace. Like, you do your research, he is Future's signature sound, honestly, from using auto-tunes to, they did majority of his projects from Pluto 3D, Future, Hendrix, Beast Mode 2. He also worked with Rihanna, Sierra, Trina, Jay-Z, Gucci Mane. Like, the list is amazing. So again, rest in peace to Seth Firkins. So when it comes to, rest in peace, Seth Firkins. I wish I would have got a chance to meet him. Steve talked highly of him. Very talented engineer. Actually, fun fact, a lot of people don't even know this. It was a cover of Double XL. I think it was an anniversary, and there's a cover of Future. He's on the front cover. It was like multiple covers that month. It had like Ray Shrimmer, Nicki Minaj, Future, I believe. But Future was pouring champagne. And I remember because Future was talking about it, and it was like, rest in peace, Seth. And a lot of people didn't even know why he would just pour it because, most of the time, you see artists just pouring champagne. But, it was around the time when Seth passed away. And, I just really wish I got a chance to meet him because I could have, learned a lot. And fun fact, when he was doing Hendrix album with Future was talking about how Seth set the mood for the album while mixing it. Like, he had a hookah, a coffee maker, and rose petals on the ground just to set the mood. So things like that sets you apart from a regular engineer to a professional engineer, but also caters to your artist, right? So the next person is Kay Lee. Now, Kay Lee, she's an amazing engineer. She won the Grammy for This Is America, Childish Gambino. She's also Lil Uzi Vert's engineer. Like, she got so many plaques, and she's very knowledgeable. So a few of Kay Lee's credits are, of course, Lil Uzi's Money Longer, Migos' Bad and Bougie, Playboi Carti's Magnolia, Uzi's XO Tour Life. Shout out to Kay Lee. One day I want to meet her. Steve talked highly about you too. And then also, I can't forget about Jason Joshua. So Steve told me about this one track. Like, he was like, you want to hear a great mix? Listen to Gucci Mane's Get a Bag with Migos, right? And at first I was like, okay, because since he is highly respected engineer, I had to listen to it. So Jason Joshua is an amazing engineer. When I heard the kick and the 808, how they blend together, I was just amazed. And then I understood why Steve was like, you know what? Yeah, he is one of the top engineers in the industry, no doubt. Like, you can look it up. He is nominated for 7 Grammys. So congratulations on, your Grammy nomination, Jason. I know you're going to get, like, a lot of those, LMA, her, even the Latin Grammys. Like, he's not just working in America. He's working outside of it. So you got to think of it that way. Like, if you're really going to, diversify yourself outside the industry, you got to, work with different genres, network with different artists, producers. Like, he did Despacito, and that was one of the biggest songs of the year. I believe it came out last year, actually, yeah, but, like, the list goes on. Like, check his IG. And one thing I noticed, a lot of people don't even notice, his hashtags are funny, but they're very in-depth because he actually talks about, like, some things you don't even notice. Like, he'll talk about the low ends. He'll talk about plugins. He'll even give you tips on how he get, like, man, I just want to sit down with Jason, honestly. I want to sit down with Kay Lee, Jason Joshua, Dave Pensado, Seth Firkins, and I really wish I got a chance to meet him because, like, Steve talks about those engineers highly, and I see why, because they're dominating the game, taking advantage of the knowledge that you can get around you. And then even with Jason Joshua, I remember when Astro Studios posted this. It's actually on my IG. I'll put it in my stories probably on IG, Ray.Rebel Ears or Rebel Ears ATL. So it was a Instagram pic when we was working on Shrimp 3. And Astro Studios tagged me, Steve, Jason Joshua, and I'm just feeling like, man, I'm actually getting a post about Shrimp 3 because me and Steve was working on it in Astro Studios, and, you know, getting tagged with Jason Joshua, that really validates that, you know, anything is possible. So within 2 years, like, my goal is to meet Jason Joshua. So Jason, if you watching this, I want to meet you in the near future. Even if I have to get a ticket just to come to the studio, just to have 10 minutes with you, I will, because if you're going to go for something, you got to go for it. You can't accomplish anything just being quiet. So much knowledge that y'all have, and I'm just thankful that Steve opened the door for me to be able to, you know, talk about engineers that he worked with. Dave Pensato, too. I want to meet Dave Pensato. I can't even lie. So, Steve, I want to say thank you for allowing me to work on multiple projects with you, getting to understand why you respect these engineers so much, why I respect them now and want to learn. Follow their IGs. Jason Joshua is not spelled Jason, it's Jaycen Joshua. K Lee is Engineer K Lee, so Engineer Klee. And of course, Steve Hibicki is Stevehybicki. So that's it from today on Rebel Ears. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok. So all the accounts are Rebel Ears. Instagram is Rebel Ears ATL. Okay, so all the other social media, if you're trying to follow us, Rebel Ears, REBELEARS. And from everybody at Rebel Ears, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you liked it, please leave a comment, hit the like button on YouTube, subscribe, click the notification so you can get our most up-to-date podcast that we're going to have. From everybody at Rebel Ears, I want to thank everybody for listening.